Greetings, all. Welcome. Thank you all for joining. People are coming in pretty quickly today, so I really appreciate that. So, guys, we are talking about how do you know when an Orisha is calling you? I get this question quite often, so we're going to really dig in today. Guys, if you're watching live, go ahead and put any questions, comments, or concerns in either chat window. We're both on YouTube and Instagram. So Instagram seems to be working well for me today. So if you want to go on either platform, feel free. If you're watching the replay, let me know what stood out to you. Let me know if you have any questions or concerns that we don't cover in today's live. Welcome all again. Greetings to you, Asaju. Thank you as always for showing up, and everybody else who is joining us. I see you guys on Instagram as well. Can't put you on the screen, but welcome to all. So we're gonna just jump right in. We're gonna look at the Orishas, understanding what they are. Then we're gonna go through 7 major signs that an Orisha is calling you. Then I'm going to talk about what do you do when an Orisha is calling you, and also what do you not do when an Orisha is calling you, because that part is very important. Unfortunately, people make a lot of mistakes in this particular area, so we're going to get to all of those components and more. Alafia, greetings, all who are showing up. So the first thing is, like I said, understanding Orishas. What are they? So most of you all already kind of know the Orishas. These are those elemental forces that are expressed as divine principles of nature. So the wind, the air, the fire, water, etc. So many different elements out there. Also, they are expressions of attributes or personas that we carry, or different traits, right? So it could be finances or money. It could be related to relationships, love, etc. And also being a peaceful individual, having a peaceful state of mind, and just so many other dynamics, transformation, etc. Pretty much everything that we experience in our walk on this earth, there is an Orisha or governing force that oversees that particular energy, and that energy is going to show up in our lives in different ways. So sometimes you'll hear people refer to Orishas as gods, which they are. We're coming from the context of the Old English terminology. In the Western sense that most people know, the Abrahamic traditions, when you say God, you're typically referring to one sovereign being. So in that case, the Orishas are not that. Instead, they are, expressions of the divine or the supreme creator, Olodumare. Okay. When we go back to the Old English definitions of the word, because really the original meaning of a god was just an entity or a force, right, that was worshipped or invoked or sacrificed to. It didn't mean this one sovereign power or creator as we take it to mean in the Western context of the word. So you can, if that's easier for you to kind of grasp that concept, you can say they are gods. I don't even necessarily say gods myself, even though that terminology can be rightfully assigned to them if you go back to the original term, because it actually came from the Greeks, right? And the Greeks were absolutely polytheistic. And so their concept of God was not the Christian understanding of God as we know it today, right? So when it comes to the Orishas, and greetings everybody who is coming in, both platforms, greetings to all. So going back to what I was saying, the Orishas, these are ultimately emissaries. They go and they do the work or the bidding for Olodumare. They're expressions of Olodumare, just as we are as humans. We are expressions of that divine force or energy, and we all have our own, energetic force or field that we govern in our own lives. and we have a destiny to complete and things of that nature. That's that ashe within us. But when we work collaboratively, we can be like such an amazing force because of that, because we're bringing together all these various beautiful aspects of Olodumare into one, and we get the knowledge, the wisdom, the information that we need to progress in life. When we don't work together, the opposite occurs. You are saying continue to enlighten Ifa and Orishas to the world. Thank you. Thank you. I will try my best to do as long as Olodumare gives me the strength and the wisdom to do so. So I received a few questions from you all prior to the live stream. One of them being, do all people have a head Orisha, and is that the same as being called by an Orisha? So absolutely, everybody has a tutelary, or what you would refer to as a guardian Orisha, okay, that governs every person's destiny, helps them walk along their destined path. Now, this is different from your Ori, and I'm going to get into that. I've talked about this concept before in both the Orisha live streams and the recent Ori live stream that I did, but I'll discuss it briefly here because it definitely bears repeating for individuals who did not see those particular episodes, right? So herein, this force is the energy that resonates most with your energy. Okay, that doesn't mean that you don't have other Orishas that work with you and guide you. Everybody actually has every single Orisha within them, within their essence. It's just that you tend to have more of certain forces based on your cosmological makeup. So when you come into the earth, you have certain forces that are governing your path more so than others. Not like the other ones aren't there, right? Because we all have water in us. Water is the basis of every human being. However, some people may have more of the water element showing up in prominent places within their blueprint, within their cosmic blueprint, than other people do. And so that's going to cause them to interact and relate to other people, to themselves, to the environment in different ways than people who may have more fire or other elements in their system. Greetings, Alavia. Thank you, Hidden Beauty, for joining us. You're saying great live. I have several Orishas appear to me in dreams. There is one that appears to me more than others. I wonder if that Orisha is my head Orisha. Could be. We're going to talk about how you find out for sure. Greetings, Awadissa. Thank you as always for joining us. Greetings, everybody who is coming in on IG. I see you all. So we're going to get back to it. So yes, that force, everybody has that force, right? And talked about it before. Any Shay, for the most part, you only have one head Orisha. Sometimes you may have another or even more than just one force that is really, really close to you. And so sometimes you may hear people say that they have two head Orishas for that reason, but there will still be one that resonates the most, even though the next one may be a close tie, for instance. Okay. How do you know for sure? And that's what you were just talking about, Hidden Beauty. You know for sure through either getting a regular Ifa reading, so you can go and get Idafa, or during the initiation process. Ifa initiation confirms that Orisha 100%. Usually it's not going to change. In very rare instances, you may have a change, but even then it's for a definitive reason why that would happen. But when you go through that initiation process, that's going to give you like the final say, so to speak, on who your head Orisha is, and you'll get more information about that force. You can even initiate unto your head Orisha if you desire to do so. And some people's head Orisha is actually Orunmila or Ifa, right? The oracle Orunmila. So, in that case, if you're initiating onto Ifa, you are in Ifa, or Orunmila is your head Orisha, you'll be initiating onto that force as well. All right. That being said, while everybody absolutely has a head Orisha, some people have those other ones. I already talked about that. I got ahead of myself. So yeah, you do have those other forces with you as well. Another question that I received is, can I be called by an Orisha that is not my head Orisha? Which is a great question. So absolutely, any Orisha can call you at any time. Likewise, multiple Orishas can call you at the same time, or even so at different points throughout your life. It really just depends on what you need. So when we say an Orisha calling, that's ultimately when an Orisha is beckoning you to draw closer to their energetic force or field for a specific reason, right? Maybe certain lessons that you need to learn at that particular time. You may need to take a certain direction in which that force governs. So if they are closer to you, they can give you better guidance on how to walk that path, right? Or it could be different levels of protection that you need as you fulfill your destiny, because you may have a destiny where you're going to be more public facing, or you're dealing with a whole lot more battles and things like that. So you may have a warrior energy like Ogun or Shango or what have you that is walking with you closely to help you to figure out that particular path and to battle on your behalf, oftentimes when you don't even know it. They just fighting for you, and you realize it later on after you've experienced certain things. So what is the difference between an Orisha and your Ori? And I got this question again. Did talk about this more in depth, especially in the previous Ori live stream. So if you want to know more about like Ori as a whole, definitely check that out. Herein, I'm going to just briefly go over the differences in the two forces. Ori, for one, is an Orisha. However, Ori is considered your inner head and your spiritual consciousness, because there are actually two aspects of Ori. The part of Ori, well, you have three actually. So you have your physical head itself, right? And then you have your inner head. That's what most people consider to be like your intuition, right? The forces, or that just intuitive knowing, right? You just know things that are going to happen. You just are guided in certain directions. You just have natural inclinations towards specific things. That's going to be your inner head energy. You also have your spiritual consciousness. So that's sort of like your spiritual double that resides in a room or heaven, wherein you want those two forces to be aligned. Because if your inner head is aligned with your spiritual consciousness, then you're walking in your destined path more often than not. We all get off track. So it's not like you're going to walk this path perfectly. Nobody is, right? Alafia, greetings. Thank you for joining us, Lance. I didn't know you were going to be able to come today. But greetings as always. Orishas, these are the universal elemental forces. However, their energy can manifest, it does manifest differently in each person's life. So even two people with the same exact head Orisha, that energy can manifest differently based on what that person needs to do in their journey, how that person shows up, whether that person is aligned properly with that energy or not. So I'll even give an example. Both me and my husband's, our head Orisha is Ogun, but it manifests it very, very differently, right? He carries that physical warrior energy heavily. Now I can carry that warrior energy with my mouth, but I'm not like a physical fighter or what have you. But he loves um to combat battle things like that. Not that he likes to just fight people. What I mean by that is, he loves martial arts and those types of things, boxing, etc. Very much so a skilled warrior in every regard. Me, I'm more on the technological aspects, the carving out pathways. I love that type of energy when it comes to Ogun. Now I have that fire in me where, yeah, I would say some stuff, a lot of stuff, based on that energy that definitely resides within me. But I'm not one to I don't focus on the physical aspects. I'm not even physical that much at all. Like I don't enjoy exercising. But somebody else with Ogun energy could, like, that's their thing. They exercise every single day, and constantly in movement, in motion, etc. So it's not even to say just because two people have the same head Orisha that they're going to show up the exact same way. Okay. Another aspect of that too is if the person is aligned with their energy. I know prior to starting E4, I was heavily out of alignment with Ogun's energy. So that was, I had a lot of anger management issues because of that. But as I practice more and more and work with my Ori, with Ogun, and other forces, I am getting back into alignment with that particular force in my journey. I find it a lot too with just people when they are out of alignment with it, their head Orisha, or an Orisha that's really closely linked to them. They tend to experience the opposite end of the spectrum of what's going on. And it happens a lot when people first start in the tradition. So somebody, for instance, whose head Orisha is Oshun, and they're out of alignment with her, a lot of times they actually experience deep financial difficulties to the point where they could even be homeless or something at some point in their life, because she governs that. She governs finances. She governs, our home life and those types of dynamics. And so when you're completely out of alignment with her, you should be in alignment with her, especially if she's your head Orisha or something. You're probably going to suffer more in that particular area. So it affects all of us. And I see it time and time again. As soon as somebody's head Orisha is revealed, and then other aspects of their life, they'll usually, sometimes they've already told me about certain things beforehand, and then at some point they'll get their head Orisha, and everything just lines up perfectly. It makes so much sense that this is why this person is experiencing these problems, because they've been out of alignment for so long with their head Orisha. You're saying grateful for this message. You are very, very welcome. Thank you for showing up as well. So this is how it goes, and when you get back in alignment, then you'll start to experience those blessings or whatnot. And this is another thing I say, because everybody wants to be aligned with specific forces, right? Everybody loves Oshun because money, wealth, relationships, love, etc., etc. But if you're out of alignment with her, and especially if your lesson or the lessons that you're supposed to learn in this lifetime, you're not in alignment to really get those lessons or walk in balance with whatever she wants to show you, then you're usually going to have a whole lot of issues in that area. So, don't be in a rush to just like, I want Oshun is my head Orisha or whatnot, because that could actually mean that you have financial problems until you get into alignment with her. It could mean that you have a lot of issues in love and things like that until you get in alignment with her. So yeah, keep those dynamics in mind for surety. Right. Likewise, their presence does change when we are going through different cosmic shifts. So it's really great if you can explore like astrology or cosmology, and you understand that. If you know, for instance, like Venus being that same Oshun energy is in a certain space in the let's see, in the cosmos. I'm trying to figure out a good example here. So if Venus is visiting Taurus, for instance, because Taurus is governed by that energy of Venus, so she's in a good aspect for the most part, depending on what other movements are going on in the cosmos. So when she's in that good aspect, it's really great for you to, anybody really, to do things related to her domain, finances, love, so forth and so on, right? So if you want to work with that energy, you can absolutely look at astrology to get an idea of what to do when, in order to affect better or positive change in your life. That being said, that does not replace about sacrifices and offerings and things like that if you have significant challenges in that area. But you can absolutely experience a great deal of alignment when you're working with those energetic forces. Yes, so it's the same archetypal energy. I'm careful to say it's the exact same thing. Why? Because when we're looking at Western astrology, we have to remember that they took from our systems. So it's not always going to be in exact alignment, but you can see those same energetic forces and patterns in the cosmos and in the way they label their particular energies, though there may be some discrepancies, right? So yes, in general, I'll just say, Venus, that's the same archetypal energy as Oshun. Same with Mercury being the same archetypal energy as Mercury, Mars, Ogun, etc., right? So you can look at those patterns and get a good idea of which Orisha is doing what, so that you can figure out what you need to be doing or not need, or what you don't need to be doing at certain times, right? Like, I'm such a stickler for Mercury retrograde. Like, that's my time to really retreat. Probably too because I was born during Mercury retrograde. So like, yeah, I don't start anything during that period. Like, I just prefer to go into hibernation, right? And it works for me. Like, I know not to do certain things at certain times, but sometimes people do things and they don't realize, oh, this is not working out. It's because that Orisha was not in a good aspect because they were on retreat. When you talk about a retrograde, for instance, of any force, that's their vacation time, right? And so when you're trying to get things going when their particular force is on vacation, you're basically asking them to work while on vacation. And how would you like somebody to ask you to do work during that time? So there are ways to circumvent it, especially when we're talking about ritual work and things like that. Like, okay, well, I'm going to pay you, right? Because that's what the EBO is. I'm going to pay you to get this done for me. I know you're on vacation, and I appreciate that. I try to respect that, but I need this done right now, and I can't wait. And so they will absolutely honor you. Always give Eshu something when he's in retrograde mode, because I work in an area where I do a lot of publication and things like that, and he's faithful when I do so. I have a question here. You said, how do you know if a prism calls you its... So I don't understand the question. If you could clarify what you mean there. I'm REM 2 Deuces 3. That's what I'm talking to here. You're very welcome, Hemp Lord. Yes, you're very welcome there. Now, long discussion about astrology, got sidetracked, but it all ties in because it's about cosmology. It's just your orientation to it, whether you're using the Western terminology, Vedic, or Yoruba terminology, or whatever, what have you. It's all the same. We're talking about the same archetypal energies. Okay. Another question I received is, will my Ori ultimately decide if I experience the signs of an Orisha calling me? And the answer is yes, it will. So your Ori is going to decide whether, how, and if you experience the sign of an Orisha calling. The Orisha will still call, but whether you hear that call or whether you can answer that call is going to be determined by Ori. And, are you properly aligned with your Ori? So an example here, if you think about it like a parent and a child. A child is, if they're on good behavior, what have you, let's say they have a cell phone. So I'm going to make it a teenager, 16-year-old, something like that. That 16-year-old has a cell phone that their parent pays for and manages and so forth and so on, right? And so when that child is behaving, that child gets to keep their cell phone. So anybody who is calling them on their cell phone, they have direct access to it. They can pick it up. They can choose to ignore it, whatever they want to do. But, they got the ring on, it's on vibrate, whatever it is, however they get their calls or messages or what have you, they can get that because the phone is with them. But if the child acts up and the parent is like, okay, you're going on punishment, and your punishment is that I'm going to take your phone, right? And so the parent takes the child's phone, and puts it in, like, let's say their room, for instance. So the phone might remain on if the parent didn't shut it down or put it on vibrate or what have you. Let's say the child's room is on the opposite end of the house. The phone rings. The child may be able to hear the phone faintly. They're not going to hear it as loud as they would if their phone was right there next to them. But the child can't answer the phone because it's been taken away from them. So you can kind of think about it from that example. Like, if you're acting up, if you're out of alignment, then your Ori may prevent you from hearing that call because they remove you far from that energy. Even so, in that same example, the parent may turn the phone off altogether, right? And so the child can't hear it ringing at all. The child may have certain friends or what have you that they talk to on a regular basis, so they know, like, my girlfriend Laura, for instance, I know she's calling me, but I can't get to my phone because I'm on punishment for like 3 days or what have you, right? So they know that Lori is calling, but they can't answer Lori's call until they get their phone back, right? So I hope that kind of gave you an example of an understanding, rather, of what that can look like. It's like the Orishas will still call, but if you're not in a position to hear or answer that call, you can miss out. And even going deeper in that, let's say Lori's calling and she has free tickets for you to the concert, for that child, rather, for a concert of a band or what have you that they absolutely just love, right? But they missed the tickets because they couldn't answer the phone in those 3 days, right? Same thing with an Orisha calling. You can miss out on opportunities. You can miss out on so many great things that are for you because you're out of alignment and your aura is like, well, we're going to withhold this energy because you're not getting it right now because you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. So, and thank you. You said it's a good analogy. Thank you very much. Okay, so how do you tell the difference between the Orishas calling you and your own desires or imagination? Thank you guys so much for this question because it is so absolutely important. Because most of the time, people just assume that, they're being called by an Orisha just because they really, really like that Orisha, right? And they're like, oh, this is my Orisha, this is my head Orisha, even so. Or, this Orisha is really trying to reach out to me because I just love this particular energy. And that's not always the case. A lot of that has come about through, the pop culture, people just wanting to be connected to specific Orishas and things like that. And so, they start studying it and it's like, yeah, I want to be connected, but it may not be the energy that is actually calling you, right? So one key to understanding the difference is to look at some of the patterns, look at some of the things that are happening. Is it consistent, and consistent based on not the things that you're doing to initiate it, right? So you could constantly just be putting yourself in a certain force field because that's what you want. Like you want to be connected to Oshun, for instance, or Ogun. Those are the two most popular ones in the diaspora. I think even so, Umoya, she gets a lot of inquiries and things like that as well. So a lot of people want to be connected to those forces, so they tend to look them up, research them, so forth and so on. And if you're doing it all the time, like, that's just natural for it to show up in your dream or for you to encounter what you would consider to be synchronicities in your day-to-day life when it may not be, could be, but it may not be. So, look for consistencies outside of that. Look for independently verifiable confirmations of it. Again, not because you're researching it or looking at it all day long. And of course, it's going to just naturally show up because of that, right? Ultimately, though, you want to verify through Ifa divination, Idafa. You don't verify through tarot cards. You don't verify through a psychic reading and intuitive reading. Even so, astrology, you don't verify through those mechanisms. You will have to get an Ifa reading, Idafa, if you're working with the tradition, because the tradition correlates to Orishas specifically, right? That's why I say don't, even though I understand the astrological correlation between the Western systems and Ifa. I don't really like to put that out there too much because it's very nuanced. Like it's not going to be exact just because there's discrepancies even so in Western astrology itself, right? So you want to go into the Ifa tradition and seek out a reading or what have you and ask your priest or priestess, is this particular Orisha calling me? If so, what do I need to do about it? They will naturally tell you if they answer the question. Like if it's a yes, usually they're going to tell you what you need to do to connect with that Orisha. Now let's get into the signs, right? So we're going to look at 7 major categories of when an Orisha is calling you. By no means is this list all inclusive because there are so many different ways that they can show up. These are just some of the common ways that you probably will see them. So dreams, visions, number one. So oftentimes people will have like vivid dreams featuring the Orishas, any of their symbology, associated elements, colors, things like that. If you keep having certain dreams or what have you, you definitely want to check on that. I'm going to be careful to say that you're going to see certain imagery because some people do see imagery in their dreams. But of course, a lot of times that imagery is going to come from what you're looking at, right? What you see in popular media because you nobody really knows what the forces look like if you go with the narrative that they lived and they walked the earth. I have my thoughts on that from certain perspectives, right? But if you go with that narrative that not all of the Orishas, but many of the Orishas actually lived on Earth, nobody knows what these forces look like in today's world. So what you're looking at or the feedback loop that you're getting is actually going to be from popular culture. When you research the Orisha, you see certain images based on their descriptions or their depictions or what have you. Visions of symbols, animals, elements tied to that particular Orisha. So you may just be seeing things in your day-to-day life, right? That are connected to certain Orishas. So you might see visions of dogs and things like that. It could be a connection to Ogun energy. You said, how long have you been in your work? What work are you referring to specifically? Okay. Alafia. Alafia. Greetings to you. Is it Nikoshi? Nikoshi, I hope I'm saying your name right. Greetings in Alafia. Is it Shanghai? Yeah. What work specifically are you referring to when you're asking me how long have I been in my work? So going back to what I'm saying, as attraction or resonance. Now it could be that you're just naturally attracted to that energy. I'm not saying that you don't have those natural inclinations, but you do have to be careful if you're just constant researching and things like that. So your question is about Ifa. So as far as doing what I do now, about 5 years, I think. You're saying how does one feed their Ori? So that's through Ibori and Ori ritual that is done through the tradition. You're not going to do it yourself unless you're trained, and even if you're trained in it, you probably still wouldn't do it on your own in most cases, right? So you actually are going to feed it specific animal offerings that it accepts. It's best to check and see what your Ori wants at that time. You can definitely go in and just tell your owl, like, I want to feed my Ori XYZ based on what Ori accepts. You can't just give Ori anything, but there are certain things that your Ori accepts, right? So you can say, feed Ori this, but I always say check and see what your spiritual force wants before you just give it an offering. And the reason I do is just like us, right? So somebody could want something from you and they just come and give you whatever they think you want, even if they know you like that, and you might like it, but it may not be what you want at that particular time in order to give them what they want, right? So let's say somebody wants to borrow your car for the weekend, and then they bring you a dozen roses in exchange for borrowing your car for the weekend, and it's like, no, like that's not going to happen, right? And so you have to think about the Orishas in the same way. Like they might normally like this, but if that's not what they need from you at that time, don't just go and give them that. So ask, right? Long answer to a short question. I hope you understood what I was saying. And so we were talking about feeding Ori. That's the Ibori ritual. That's what I was referring to, guys. So going back to what I was saying, like just having those natural levels of attraction. So feeling deeply drawn to a particular Orisha without really knowing why. You just feel like connected to an Orisha or a spiritual force because you might not even know the name for it at the time. You might just be really connected to water energy. You just love water and you do not understand why, but you just like you can't get enough of. You always want to be around water or what have you. It could be, especially like it depends on the type of water, right? So let's say you just love being at the beach, like that's your thing. Anytime you get an opportunity to be at a beach, you're going to be there. Could be a connection to Umoja. You don't know that name yet, so you're just starting to connect with that energy. You're saying thank you. I inquired because I recently spoke with a Babalawo and initiation was pulled for me for my Aldu. He mentioned being a medium, which made a lot of sense. However, I find it intimidating at times. Yes, it could possibly be that you need to go ahead and do the initiation, but as I always say, not to get too deep in that conversation right now, take your time and walk that path whenever you are ready to do so and work out that energy in a way that feels good and right for you. Okay. All right. You're very welcome. Is it Glenoff? You're very welcome. Very welcome. So yes, going back to what I was saying, so that could be an example of it, right? Resonating with their colors, their symbols, music, mythology, things like that, right? So you could just have this just all for a certain color, like red, for instance, and it could be Shango drawing you in or what have you. You might just hear Orisha music and you don't even know what they're saying. You don't even know what it is at that point. You may have never even been introduced to the Orishas or the Yoruba tradition, but you can just hear it playing in the background. You just feel an attraction to that type of music, things of that nature, right? You might decide you want to just naturally change your wardrobe, right? Somebody might just be in love with a particular color and they wear it all the time. It could be their connection to that Orisha that's just calling them. You are very welcome as well, Shanghai. Is that how you say it? You're very welcome. Feeling drawn to certain foods or places or activities that's connected to that Orisha. And the funny thing for me is I absolutely love fish. I'm still a little bit upset about the fact that I can't eat it, but I love fish, and it came out that I have a really, really close connection to Ocean. She's not my head Orisha, but I have a really, really close connection to her. I'm actually not supposed to eat fish. So yeah. Synchronicities, number three, synchronicities rather, and environmental signs. So that could be another thing that could show up. So for instance, you could see repetitive numbers like maybe the number three all the time, and it could be an indication that you're linked to the energy of Eshu. You could see certain imagery all the time or references or names associated with that particular energetic force that could be a sign like you're connected to this energy and you need to go ahead and solidify that connection, right? Meeting people or encountering situations that continually lead you down that path of that particular Orisha is another example. You're saying here, Nikoshi, I always love studying Ifa and Arumula. Lately, though, Oya has been pulling me to look into my Iya. So it is the Oya, is she your head Orisha, or do you know your head Orisha? And it could be that you are connected to both your Arumula and Oya, and they're trying to pull you in so that you know what's going on and you get the help that you need in a certain area. You can learn certain lessons related to both of those forces. You're saying, yes, I see repetitive numbers almost daily. You need to look into that because that could be a strong indicator of your connection to an Orisha. Natural occurrences that align with an Orisha. So, like if you are always in storms or something like that, you just always find yourself being in the midst of storms, no matter where you go, or even so rain or something like that could be a connection to oil or lightning. You just some people they get struck by lightning multiple times, and they said that like lightning never strikes the same place twice, but some people have been hit by lightning maybe 2 or 3 times in their lives, and it could be a strong indication that they're tied to Shango's energy, but they don't know about Shango, right? So they just keep having those experiences and they're not answering that call to figure out what Shango is trying to teach them, and they're not connecting with him properly. Yes, so you're saying Oya is your head, yep. So they're trying to get your attention. You just move forward in that path to connecting with them. Um, Unexplained desires to visit natural locations tied to that Orisha. Like I was saying, before I gave that example, you might be really, really connected to Umoja. You want to go to the ocean all the time, waterfalls for Oshun. You might like spaces where there's a lot of fiery energy, could be Ogun or what have you. You could love going to like mountain tops or peaceful places, indicating a connection to Obatala, things like that. You're very welcome, Nikoshi. So yeah, there are so many different ways that the Orishas can call you. Items mysteriously appearing or disappearing. So for instance, you could just keep losing money. Or you could just keep seeing feathers show up or stones or something like that. Now, if you're dealing with something missing, that's a strong indicator that that's your Igbe or room, your astral mates that are showing up, which they are Orishas as well. So if you keep losing money, especially, is a strong indicator that your Igbe are trying to get your attention. And please answer the call if they are. That's all I'm going to say to that. Because Igbe, whew. You're saying any ideas on being influenced by, are you saying Egungun? So I would say, especially if you have like a natural attraction to like graveyards or um, anything related to transformation, rebirth, things like that, that could indicate, or if you just having this conversation. So it could be that you keep dealing with rebirth situations and things like that in your life. That could be a strong indicator of Egungun, because Egungun is about like transformation, like death, closures, rebirth, etc. Um, if you're strongly, closely, if you feel connected to like earth, to land, if you just feel like you want to be connected to those dynamics, it could be Egungun. There could also be a number of forces. So that's why I say, always check. But if you're having these types of urges or you're having this type of energy around you a lot, definitely it could be an Orisha calling you and you want to know specifically for your particular situation. It was something else I wanted to say about Egungun. I think too, just kind of naturally liking to be around like cemeteries or things like that. I don't, did I say that before? But that's what came to my mind too. If you just really like being around cemeteries, graveyards, and things like that, that could be an indicator of your connection to Egungun, right? Egungun can actually be a person's head or Orisha as well. So it could be that if you're feeling that energy. Let's see, you said what about smells? I am going to get to that, but yes, absolutely. If you keep smelling things and so forth and so on, they could indicate your connection to a specific Orisha. And that's even a good one for Egungun, because Egungun oftentimes will show up like through familiar smells or scents that you experienced with them before they left the earth. So it could be your favorite perfume of a grandmother or something like that, right? Definitely. That's a great example. Thank you for that. Emotional and energetic shifts. So even having like sudden urges and things like that to learn about an Orisha, right? Being emotionally triggered whenever you hear about an Orisha or you hear a song or something related to that particular energy. You're very welcome. Having a sense of peace, empowerment, or even transformation whenever you're engaging with their energy, you just feel so really, really connected to their energy. Let's see. You're very, very welcome, him, Lord, as well. Um, Also, number 5. So protection, guidance, and blessings. Sorry, I was trying to look at two places at once. So, number 5 being protection, guidance, and blessings. So, avoiding danger or harm that's connected to that Orisha's domain, right? In ways that feel miraculous, like you just walking down the street or something and you have a near miss, something's coming at you and you almost get hit and you just saved, right? It could be a strong indicator of a goon's protection or something like that. And you have those types of experiences quite frequently, like near misses, and you're like, okay, something is going on. Definitely a sign you need to check into it and see, what that Orisha is protecting you from and what you can do to even so protect yourself and just to give thanks, right? So if you keep having an Orisha save you, you definitely want to give it something to show forth your gratitude. Unexpected blessings, gains, opportunities tied to that Orisha's influence as well. Like if you keep experiencing certain things, I can say this for my daughter. I'll give an example here because Oshun is her head Orisha. And from the time she was a little baby, people would always walk up to me and want to just give me money for her. They would literally ask me, can I give her some money? And not even small money, right? Even as a baby, they would like, oh, can I give her this? And they'd be willing to just like give her $100 or something like that. She's always had that blessing on her life. She still does, even as she grows up. We can be out and somebody will just walk up to her and ask her, can they give her money or what have you. She is, definitely has that Oshun energy in that regard. So, we didn't find out until later on, right, that she was a child of Oshun. Oh, that's Elgun. She was a child of Oshun. We didn't find it out until later on because when she was young, like I wasn't even practicing the tradition. It was like years later that I realized that, and then it made sense. Like, oh, okay, that's why people always walking up giving you money and stuff. Wanting to. It's always something connected to finances. She's very, very blessed in that area. You're saying I'm a martial artist, have competed professionally, specializing in Haitian machete fencing, also hunt. Thought my head Orisha was a goon or Oya, but turned out to be a Batala. Now I understand why. Can you explain why? Like, why do you feel like that is linked now, especially seeing all of this energy towards like fighting and things like that? And then it being Obatala and Orisha of peace, right? Thank you for that example too. Great example. Um, Feeling a strong, unseen presence guiding you in decision making, you just know, like it's something else here beyond me that is helping me to make a choice in this particular situation. Even so, they may force a choice. Right? You trying to figure out should I go this way or that way, and they just remove the choice that you don't need to take, and so you're only left with that one pathway, and you go down it, and you realize, oh yeah, this was definitely the right decision, the right pathway that I need to take at this particular time in my experience. So, number 6, sensory experiences. So, you might even have like some type of, clairvoyant, clairaudient type of experiences where you're hearing the Orishas calling your name, or you might consistently um, hear things, right? It might not even be like the Orisha itself. You might not hear the Orisha's name being called. I use my daughter as an example of this as well. She's oftentimes hearing somebody calling her name. She usually thinks it's me. And so she'll come and be like, did you call me? And I'm like, no, I didn't. But it's her Egbe. They constantly call her and talk to her and things like that. So she's thinking that is me because she's hearing my voice and they show up in a familiar voice, but it's not, right? That happens quite often, especially with Egbe spirits. You're saying here, I hear ish in other rooms. One time I smelled a woman's perfume. Did you check it out to see if it was an Orisha or if there's a spirit that was working with you? Could be a spiritual wife, especially you're saying that. Yeah, she does that too. Like she could be all the way on the other side of the house, even so upstairs or downstairs, and she'll come to me and like, what do you want? And I'm like, nah, it's probably your egg bay. And like if it happens enough times in a row, we go and check with our this and it's like, yeah, your egg bay are calling you. So, we need to feed them or something like that because they love to give her a hard time as well. So yeah. Feeling warm, tingling, or other sensations when calling upon the Orishas, you just feel their energy or what have you, right? So you're saying is either Oshun or my mommy water could be, right? So especially a woman there, they could be calling you saying, you need to do something, you need to speak to them, you need to sit with them. You said, why would an Orisha choose your head? Are you saying, why would an Orisha choose to be your head Orisha? Is that the question? Because, and I'm going to get to that, but if that's the question, the reason why, I don't even know if it's the Orisha choosing your head or like that's what's chosen for you based on your destiny. I don't know if you hear me on this. I will just, but if you can give clarity there, right? So I think that it's more so like you choose your destiny, and then your destiny is it based on your destiny. The Orishas that need to walk with you are then chosen from their perspective, and it's done so based on the lessons and the things that you need to learn. Maybe some protection that you need. It just depends on your particular walk and the experiences that you're supposed to have. Shanghai, you're saying clear audience. My ex-partner's head was SU and his voice certainly sounded like thunder. Okay. Yes. It can be so many different things. And I love that you guys are bringing forth these examples because it is not one linear things and it can show up in so many different ways for so many people. You said, or is that hereditary? Is what hereditary? What are you referring to being hereditary? Okay, so you're saying exactly as I explained. Thank you for that. So this is confirming like what I said about when you choose your destiny, then your head Orisha and your other Orisha are basically going to be selected according to what you need to do, right? Because it's all about your unique experience that you're going to have on earth. You said, or is it hereditary? Your head Orisha, is it hereditary? No. So it's like just like I was explaining, it's based on what you need to do when you come here to earth. You said, thanks for the knowledge. You're very, very welcome. In this lifetime, so based on your destiny that you're supposed to complete in this lifetime, correct? And right, so you could leave here and reincarnate, and it could be a completely different spirit that's governing you, or different forces that are close to you, if that's what you're asking. I hope I'm understanding your questions properly. So you guys already brought this up, so definitely encountering different smells that are associated with that Orisha without a physical source being there to corroborate like why you're actually smelling what you're smelling or what have you. So that could definitely be a sign of a force that is with you. You saying yes. So yeah, that's what it is. It's about what you need during this particular experience. The seventh sign that we're going to get to is spiritual phenomena. So if you're consistent, you could actually persistently go through trials, and I talked about this earlier, connected to that Orisha's domain of authority. And so they could be trying to get your attention, like, hey, you're out of alignment. You need to really get back in alignment and connect with that spiritual force so that they can direct and guide you during your experience. But you're not in alignment, so you can consistently experience the opposite of that beautiful, blessed energy that you desire to experience from that particular force. So, I gave the example earlier of Oshun, but it can happen with any specific Orisha, right? So, talking about Eshu, you guys mentioned earlier, Eshu being the trickster spirit, right? This trickster energy, you could always end up falling for his tricks, so to speak, and catch yourself in a lot of problems due to that if you are not properly aligned with his energy, if he's your head Orisha or he's closely connected with your energy. So you want to be careful there. So aside you're saying, going back to your question, or your statement rather, you said, I have a peaceful energy. Obatala is the Orisha of peace. Sometimes in order to maintain peace, you have to be equipped for war. Absolutely. Yes. Diplomacy is absolutely an aspect of war. You said, I'm also a leader and creative, which are also some of Obatala's traits. Absolutely. Absolutely. And you could likewise have other warrior energies, because like Obatala also, with that diplomacy aspect, that is a part of war, peacekeeping. Diplomacy is peacekeeping. So it's not always about physical battle, right? And it's also the notion of spiritual battles as well that you need to fight to keep your peace, to keep peace overall. It says, does your Ori choose the Odu you get when you initiate into Ifa, for example? So your Odu is based on when you were born. So that's definitely corroborated with your Ori or your destiny, but it happens before you come to Earth. Your Odu that you get when you're initiated is the Odu that you were born with. It's not the Odu that somehow comes about at your time of initiation, if that's what you're asking. Oria has been coming in my dreams more than any Orisha, especially in a recent dream. You may want to check to see what she is trying to show you, right? If she is your head Orisha or what have you. Because you said earlier, I think, that you didn't know who your head Orisha was, right? Hidden Beauty. You're saying here, I'm glad someone mentioned her. Yes. There is it could be so many different examples. Everybody is individual. That's why I always say, check for yourself, because even somebody with, two people with a head Orisha warrior, their life could manifest so differently. One person could go through so many different trials and tribulations and storms in life. It's just always upheavals, always having to be realigned or what have you, and another person can experience the same transformative aspects of Oya, but not necessarily so much in storm energy. They could just go through different metamorphoses in their life, and it doesn't necessarily have to be chaotic or in a space of upheaval or what have you. So you're saying, why do head Orishas change? That's a good question. Based on the lineage that I work with, we do not teach that principle. Some people do, right? We don't teach the principle that head Orishas change, because they normally don't. There are rare cases where you may be like you're told you have a specific head Orisha, and then when you go to initiate, it might change. But it's not like your head Orisha is changing every single time or every month or what have you. That's not what we teach or we believe in Isheshe. Right. Yes. I operate under Isheshe, and even more so when I say lineage, I'm not just talking about Isheshe, but the specific house or the temple that I work with, right? So you might have somebody else in Isheshe that teaches that principle, but everybody doesn't. So that does not resonate with me. That doesn't vibe with me, and like the teachings that I've had. So yeah, but some people will tell you that it changes, and I think what they're doing is they're seeing the movement, because they do move and they do, have more influence in your life at times than at other times. But your head Orisha is the Orisha that resonates the most with you. And that doesn't change, right? I've given an example before is like your parent. You can think of your head Orisha like your parent. Your biological parent never changes. That being said, there'll be times in your life, um, and I'm going to say one. Yes, you have two parents, right? 'Cause somebody's asked about that before. Even though you have two parents, typically you're going to be more closely connected to one parent over the other. So you may be closer to your dad, or you may be closer to your mom. Just depending on the energy and the things that happen surrounding your birth or your life. That being said, everybody has biological parents, but everybody's not raised with their biological parent, right? And even so, the people who are, you're going to have different influences in your life. Like myself, for example, like my mom is still alive. My dad is gone. And I was very close to her growing up. But, now I'm a 46-year-old woman. And I still value her wisdom or what have you, but she's not the closest person in my life anymore. Does that stop her from being my biological mother? Absolutely not. She's still my biological mother, but I have other influences and forces in my life more so than her at this stage of my journey, right? So yeah, that's kind of how that works out or looks. Um, you saying, well, that's the calm Orisha then. Well, I don't understand that. The calm Orisha part. All right, you said understand. There you go. You understand. I love that one. What if the Yami want a positive relationship with you and your male? Oh, and I guess you're saying, and you are a male, so you go ahead and you enter that relationship. I was just having that conversation yesterday too. So Yami are a group of they're male, female energies or feminine energies rather. However, everybody has feminine and masculine aspects of them. So it's not like a yummy are just for women and they only govern female. They govern really the terrestrial realm, right? And so they're going to impact it from a nurturing maternal perspective, but there are many men who are, consider themselves to be, or I won't say consider themselves, who are absolutely heterosexual, but they have more nurturing energy in them because they have more feminine dynamics within them, right? So the energy manifests in the feminine or the masculine, but that doesn't mean that you can only be connected to it just because whether you based on your biological equipment, right? So whether you have female or feminine, I'm trying to say female or male, equipment, right? That's not how that works. You can still be connected to them. So if they're calling you, I would definitely encourage you to go ahead and connect with those forces um, in a way, in a meaningful way, right, for you. So see what that looks like in your particular experience. So you're saying they favor me. Obatala favors you. Okay, beautiful. Beautiful. It's great to have that energy of Obatala, calm, peaceful. Experiencing setbacks and blockages. This is another way, right? Whenever you're not honoring their guidance, so they can definitely cause you challenges there, as I've said before. That's the part that you don't want, but it can happen if they keep knocking on their door and you're not answering. It's just like the line in what do you call it, Black Panther, when the guy was like, they're not gonna knock again, right? So when they come through the next time, it's not gonna be favorable, and you don't want that. So it's best for you to go ahead and answer that call whenever you hear it. He said, I got you. Thank you. I just wanted to hear this from a woman perspective. And you hit that on the button. I only mentioned gender due to the yummy being feminine. I got you. And it's not the first time I have gotten that question, right? For some reason, men feel like left out of a yummy energy. And that's just not so, guys. It's just not. Okay, you're saying it's so true, and they will block blessings if you're not answering that knock. That's it. And you don't want it. You want to answer that call as soon as possible. Okay, so what to do when you feel called. So we're going to talk about what you should do and what you should not do when you feel called. First, we're going to get into some things that you should do. Shanghai, you said you read a story about a guy who was more so hot-tempered, and before finding out his head, he swore he was Shango, but ended up being Umoya. He had become an entirely different person. Yeah, so if he was hot-headed, maybe she was cooling him down, trying to cool him down with those waters. Also, again, going back to the notion or the concept that even though you have a head Orisha, that doesn't mean that you don't have other Orishas that work really, really closely with you. So it still could be like that heat that he was experiencing could come from Shango or another warrior energy, right? So it just really depends there. You're saying, is it new power soul? Am I saying that right? The yummy favor me. Beautiful. It's always great to have the yummy favor you. He said express gratitude because her energy brought a calmness to him that he had not known prior. Yes. So yeah, that water can cool you down real good. Yes. Got a few more comments over here. Okay, you're saying signs that Umoya is your Orisha. There are many signs. So, I've talked about this a little bit. I'm not going to go too deep into it because it's best to just check, right? Because you could go through all these signs. You could say, yeah, I'm experiencing this, and it could still not be Umoya as your head Orisha. But definitely, if you have an attraction to water or things like that, even so, if you have a fear of water, right? It even so could be in, this is an example. Maybe you had a lot of people around you in your family or what have you who have had accidents or drownings, even so, in or, near water or what have you, or in water, right? If they drown, but they've had maybe even so accidents near water or something like that. Or even so maybe you've had a lot of incidences around water that could be a sign that Umoya is calling you, or I don't want to say your head Orisha because that's not how you determine your head Orisha. I'm more focused on calling here because a spirit could be calling you, and Orisha could be calling you and not be your head Orisha specifically, okay? You are saying here, what if they are still blocking you after you answer the call and you give offerings? You need to check and see what's going on with your owl, right? Because I don't know what that looks like for you, because you said when you give offerings, are you giving the offerings yourself? Are you giving the offerings based on acceptable protocol? Is somebody else doing the offerings for you? Did they check if other Orishas need feeding at the same time, etc.? There could be so many different things going on in that situation. So my best advice there would be for you to check with your owl or whoever you're working with in that particular case, right? Because that's a big one. You're saying love, Iyami. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so a few more questions over here on Instagram. I came across an article about the Orishas and heard a voice say no. I'm not very informed on the Orishas, and I was wondering if some of us should just stay away. So you can't stay away from the Orishas because they live within you, right? So that's impossible. Now, it could be that they were saying no based on the article that you were reading. They have been telling you that what you're reading is maybe not applicable to you, or maybe you're going down the wrong path. Maybe you're reading something that you you think applies to you and it may not be you. It could just be something altogether different. But there is no way to stay away from the Orishas because they live within you and they are within the environment, right? How you interact with them, that's a whole different story. Shanghai, you're saying I love water, but I had a fear of the deep, and the crazy part is that I can swim. Could be some kind of connection with emo. You could even be your egbe at work if you're connected to certain spirits that are connected to water. Could even so ocean, but if it's like ocean type of water, it's probably pneumonia. Okay, so what to do? Like I said before, seek out E for divination, right? This live stream is just to give you all more information about the phenomenon. But the only way to know 100% for sure is through EDAFA. Like I said before, not a tarot reading, not a psychic reading, not even somebody telling you, oh, you're having all of these experiences, you must be a child of. No, that's not how that goes. You want to go and check and find out for sure. Okay. Once you figure out who that head Orisha is, start to study and learn about that Orisha from reputable sources. Try to understand which Orisha, how that Orisha is manifesting in your particular experience. Take notes and see, because as I said before, it's not going to show up the exact same way for everybody. Like Shanghai, you mentioned over here, you love water, but you have a fear of it. Some people just absolutely love water. Some people just absolutely are afraid of water. They won't go near it or what have you, right? And it could be an indication of somebody having a really strong connection to a water spirit either way, or water energy either way, right? You're very welcome. Both of you guys, you're very welcome. Okay, so yeah, that is very important for you to do that as well. Take notes, guys, and see how that energy shows up in your life, right? How it's manifesting and how you need to work with it specifically. Because as I said before, it's not that everybody's going to have the same Orisha or the same Orisha, head Orisha, or the same Orisha that's calling them. It is going to show up the exact same way across the board. Instead, it can look so very different. Even so, like your taboos that are associated with that particular Orisha can be different from person to person, right? I've given the example like, Oshun, my connection to her, I can't eat fish, right? But another person who is connected to Oshun may be able to eat fish. Even so, they could be a child of Oshun and they can eat fish with no problems. But yeah, that's a taboo for me, right? So, Katrina, do we offer readings? Absolutely. We offer several types of readings. We do EDAFA, ancestor readings, African astrology, so many different things. It should be linked because yeah, you're on YouTube, so it should be a link to the shop on YouTube where you can see the different offerings, and you can also go directly to the website asanee44.com. Stay away from personal taboos. Yes, do not violate your taboos because that can cause you so many different problems that you just do not want to deal with. You don't. You're saying pork is one of my taboos. Haven't had it since I found out. Yes. I don't. That wouldn't bother me at all because I'm not a pork either. But I feel you on just, if it's your favorite food and you just have to give it up, right? That's just the reality of what you got to do if you want to if you want your life to be pretty decent. It's not like it's going to, like, if you violate your taboos and your life is ruined. So some people it could be, though. It could be that serious. Because some people, they could violate their taboos, and let's say like they have that thing with fish and they eat fish and they could end up having some type of a horrible, allergic reaction or what have you, and they could end up passing away from it, right? Even so, it could be a taboo related to it. When I say that, I'm reminded of Malcolm Jamal Warner's recent death. And I don't know what Orisha he was connected to. I'm not saying it in that way, but when he passed, it even reminded me of a taboo that's connected to, I think, Oshun, where you don't want to be around too many bodies of water. And it's not for everybody, it's for certain people. And I thought to myself, what if that was a taboo for him? Because that can happen where you violate certain taboos and it can absolutely end up in you transitioning to the astral realm. Or it can cause you major problems. So there's nothing to take lightly whatsoever. You are welcome. Is it Katrina? Am I saying it right? Is it Katrina? It's a different spelling there. So I don't want to get it wrong. But yes, so see how it shows up in your life. You can start to pray to the Orishas. All right. You can just say heartfelt prayers, communicate with the Orishas in your own time and in your own way. You don't have to be initiated. You don't even have to practice the Ifa tradition to pray to spiritual forces, to the Orishas, to your ancestors, to your Igbe. You can do that on your own. Now, that being said, some of the higher level work, you do have to be connected to the tradition to do, right? So I forgot I was on this. So you can also connect with the Orishas through their domain, right? If you know you're connected to Ocean, you can go and sit at lakes. If you know you're connected to Ogun, you can go out in forests if that's your thing, right? You can go sit out on mountaintops or what have you. You can connect even so to fire through lighting candles or what have you. You can have them all around you if you feel connected to that particular energy. Okay, so now going to that next dimension, working within the tradition, you can absolutely get like your blessed Ide, Ilekis, what most people call Ilekis, to connect you to the energy of your Orishas. Any Orishas is not, excuse me, it doesn't just have to be your head Orisha either that you connect with. These are for my head Orisha, Ogun, but you can get Ilekis for pretty much any Orisha that you desire to get it for. And that's a great way to connect, especially if you don't want to really maintain a Orisha pot at that particular stage, or even so ever. You might not want to, you're not going to, in general, you're not going to want to get every single Orisha pot for every Orisha that you're connected to because it's a lot to maintain. So usually you're going to get the ones that are closest to you, like your head Orisha, of course, Ifa, Eshu, because those forces are connected to everybody. Trying not to say the name wrong, right? I want to say IJ, so is it IJ or I? It is IJ, right? Because I was about to say IG. So it could be IJ or what have you. Um, those types of energies. Sorry for that, guys. There's noise in my background if you guys hear that. But you can. It may be like IJ. You can connect with IJ. Not that IJ is somebody's head Orisha, but IJ connects to everybody, right? You can get the icons for your head Orisha, your Ori, your Egbe, things like that. Those are great forces to work with. But if you start trying to get them for every Orisha, it can be overwhelming to you, right? So a light way to do that is to get their energy through your blessed Elakis. And you can absolutely go ahead and get consecrated devices, the pots, the icons, and things like that for you to work with that particular spiritual force one on one, right? So you can get the hand of Ifa. That's what most people start with. Or you can even get a pot for your head Orisha if you want your head Orisha closest to you or what have you. So you can get that done through an Ifa priest or priestess, whoever you're working with. You can also consider the pathway of initiation unto your Orisha. You can initiate unto Ifa, but you can also initiate unto the specific Orishas that govern your head, any of them that you desire to do. So again, it kind of falls under that notion of maintaining a pot. The pot is naturally going to come if you initiate, but you can also get the pot without going through the full initiation process if you want to get closer to that particular Orisha. So you're asking, in traditional Ifa, do they give Oshun with Eshu? No. So in Isheshe, you're gonna get whatever Orishas that you ask for specifically. They don't like automatically come together. No, I know what you mean by that because you Bruhajeri, yeah. So yeah, I know you're practicing in the diaspora systems and like Lukami where they, automatically give certain Orishas together. That's not how it works in Isheshe. You're gonna get the the icons based on what either comes up in divination or what you ask for. It doesn't have to come up in divination. You could just be like, hey, I want the hand of Ifa and go straight for it. You could be like, I want to work with Oshun and go straight for it. I don't recommend that. I would recommend that you first seek out which Orishas are calling you, because it might be a specific Orisha calling you. You skip over that Orisha and jump to something else because that's what you want, and you're not making the proper connections that you should be making. And so you might still have challenges in your life because you're not really feeding the Orisha that's trying to get your attention because they want to provide you with something at that time. Now, well, my D got cut off, but herein, what not to do when you feel called by an Orisha. This is very, very important, guys. Okay. First, don't ignore that call, because if you ignore it, your situation is going to get worse. You're likely going to start having some of those, for lack of a better word, negative implications of not dealing with that Orisha properly. So you want to go ahead and answer that call in the best way that you can. And that usually looks like going to work with an Ifa priest or priestess. Okay. Do not attempt to build or feed consecrated Orisha shrines without training or guidance. Please don't do that. I know there's a lot of literature online or even so in books that want to tell you how to go and set up an altar for an Orisha and, tell you to go and start feeding that Orisha. I strongly advise anybody against even so setting up an altar and giving it food, because you start feeding a spiritual force and you don't know what you're doing. You could be inviting spiritual forces into your environment that you don't really want there, right? Because they could be parading as that particular energy and you don't know any better. And in Isheshe, a consecrated or blessed shrine always comes through, it's born through blood, right? So it has to be set up with blood. You don't just go out and buy all of these things that somebody tells you to buy and, set up this like beautiful station or what have you, shrine, etc., and then just start giving it, flowers or I don't know, oranges or whatever it is that they tell you to give it, because that's not how that works. First of all, like these devices are not going to be aesthetically pleasing, especially once you get to using them, because they are going to be, you're going to be placing food and blood and things like that on them. Once you are properly trained in that process, usually in the beginning, you're not even going to be feeding your own pot blood unless you have the proper training to do so. But you will be feeding those particular devices offerings, food offerings, or what have you. And it's not aesthetically pleasing, right? Because they have all these images of these beautiful, nice altars. And I'm not saying that it's wrong for you to set up a really, really beautiful altar, but understand that that is not Isheshe practice, okay? You don't just go and start setting something up on your own. Anybody who would tell you to go and set up an altar on your own, they are not telling you anything about true tradition, because that's not how it works. Do not undergo initiation just based on hype, peer pressure, fear, etc. You can initiate unto an Orisha, but this is something that you should do once you've made a sound decision to do so. You know what you're getting into. It's not something that you just rush into just because somebody tells you that this Orisha is your head Orisha, or this Orisha is, calling you and trying to get your attention, that you should still make a sound logical decision. As I mentioned before, there are other ways to connect with those forces without going straight into initiation. There are times where initiation is very important for a person's path and it can save them from certain things. But even in those cases, I just don't feel like anybody should do that based off of fear or pressure or anything like that. So, another question, how do you handle fear, doubt, or resistance when an Orisha does call you? 'Cause some people are afraid, like, they're having these different experiences. One of the first things I say is to reduce your content overload, because a lot of times people are just looking at the same thing over and over and over again. And you're shopping from one place to another, and so they're getting a lot of mixed information. It goes back to the lineage dynamics that you guys were asking me about over here on IG. Like, you are getting mixed up a lot of times, and so that can make you feel like frustrated, overwhelmed, etc. when it comes to connecting with an Orisha. So take some time out if you need to just meditate and figure out what direction is right for you. And if you're working with somebody, bring your concerns to that individual. Don't try to go it alone, especially when it comes to those higher level things with working with an Orisha or what have you. Okay. Now, this is the last section here. So if you guys have any additional questions, comments, concerns, let me know as we go along. And I'm going to just talk about, walking with an Orisha. So understand, guys, that your inner head is that spiritual compass. That's your intuition. That's your Ori or what have you. Always follow it. Trust it. Develop a relationship with it, to develop that strong connection with your Ori, so that you know when it is leading you. And, ask it to guide you and lead you in the right place. Understand that being called by an Orisha also is not a flex. All right. Some people love this, type of thing. This Orisha called me and, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And Orisha calling, yes, it's in part for you, but it's also for your destiny. And that's going to be related to you serving others in some capacity, because we all serve others in some way or another, right? It's also for your holistic healings, to help you to align, to evolve, etc. It's not like, Orisha, Oshun is calling me, so that means that I'm going to be super wealthy or what have you. Again, that's what some people think, right? That they get connected to Oshun and they're just going to have everything that they want. All right. Katarina. Okay, you sent the second one, so it's the Katranina. I can't even say it now. Katranina, I think, right? So yes, don't think it's a flex. Like, this is part of your spiritual dynamics. This is just part of what you're supposed to be doing. Connect with your spirits and walk the path of alignment. That's what it's all for. Okay. Yes, I already went through that part. So if you do feel called to work with Orisha, honor that call, guys. Like I said before, walk in Iwapele, gentle character, tend to your spiritual obligations, and just move forward. And they will continuously reveal themselves to you and show you what you need to be doing, right? So, guys, if any of this, call to you today, right? You want to align with your destiny. If you want transformation in your life, definitely reach out to us. Check us out on the Asanee 44 website for deeper guidance. We have so much information there. If you want a reading, as somebody asked earlier, definitely check us out. We do so many different types of readings. So that's it for this live stream. The next live stream, I do want to get into earthbound spirits, ghosts, apparitions, things like that, from the perspective of Ifa. So definitely, guys, join us then. Thank you all for joining us today. So I'm going to go ahead and close because I don't see anything on either platform. As always, Ashe. Please have a very blessed and beautiful day and beyond, guys.